Alright YouTube, thanks for watching. I'm going to try to share some tips on the Kia sliding door, automatic doors, actuating system. This is just some information I wish I had explained to me before I had the vehicle torn apart, just to help diagnose different problems you may be having. Once you've removed all the side trim on the door itself, you will come across this panel. You won't have the handle on anymore. Put that on just as a general reference. You'll be detaching two brake line cables that come in from this side. This is the right side of the vehicle. You have another cable that comes in here, and the pin sits right here, and then this helps lock it into place. This motion here. You remove the four nuts that hold this entire assembly into your door, and then you will fight to get this cable loose. This is a much longer cable from factory because it slides behind the window guides for when the window is lowered, and this on the long end ties into your mechanical door handle from the exterior. So when you pull the door to open the sliding door from the outside, it pulls a mechanical chain link. And that feeds back into here. So I thought I'd just dissect this a little bit for y'all's sake, that way you can know what's going on. On the bottom there's two electrical connectors. When you are looking at it on the door side, you'll see a third one right here with just two wires going to it, and that's what feeds the electric window up and down motor. So it reverses polarity to lower the window, so that's not related. If you look a little bit further to the right on this side, if you're looking at this, the right side door to the right here, or everything else would be reversed if you're looking at the left side door, is another little contraption and some connectors. That is for the window safety system. If the window is lowered, the door will only stop at a middle position to not decapitate anyone. That is another little brake line looking deal, like a bike brake, one of these, and it's just purely mechanical. If the window is lowered, it's automatically releasing a block. On the bottom side, I put a little sketch here of the van sliding system so that the door won't open up all the way. That way if someone has their head sticking out the window as the door opens, it wouldn't catch them between the door and the pillar of the car. But those are all unrelated systems to this little marvel here. This is not actually made by Kia. On some of these parts you'll see Kia branding or Hyundai branding, but the brand is actually D-A-E-K-I, Daiki Automotive Locking Systems. My guess is they're just a middleman. They might be owned by Kia and Hyundai, but just to get past a lot of the safety systems. This one is removed from a 2008 Kia Sedona, but I believe everything from like 04 or 06 all the way up to the even 2014 are all identical, if not very similar. So let's take a look at this and see if it helps you out at all. There's two connectors here, like I mentioned. This lower one goes directly into this little apparatus, which is only attached to this system but not necessarily connected to it. There is a little motor, like an actuator motor, that sits right here and then turns a set of gears. This bracket system, when actuated, turns this plastic lever, and this is your car lock and unlock. And I've noticed that because this is an original assembly, but it's already been tampered with by some jerry-rigging of whoever had it repaired beforehand, which is why you see some wire splicing that's not factory. Some of these actuator motors that you can purchase online fit a lot of different systems. I mean, these are little toy motors that you can pull out of a kid's toy and repurpose the shaft to fit one of these. The replacements usually have a metal worm gear as opposed to the plastic. And some of them do vary in length, and you can probably pry it off the original, put onto the new one. that wouldn't do you much good. That's usually where the damage is in the chewing, not so much the electrical motor. But so these actuators are quite similar, and they can interchange and fit quite easily. But one thing I noticed on the connector side of the door of the power assembly that comes in, whoever installed the previous actuator to replace it, it wasn't the correct motor, meaning that the polarities of the motor were the opposite of what were needed. And I don't know if that was from factory or jerry-rigging or the wrong part. Obviously not from factory. But so what they did was they spliced and swapped those two connectors that went into this system here. There's about 5 connectors, but you identify the 2 motor leads and trade them off. Because what happened when I replaced it with a new one, I'd go to lock the door and it was actually unlocking it because the wires had been switched. But it was visibly done, and I questioned why it was done in the first place and recognized it before I finished the repair. I actually just finished repairing the other door. So that's one little unit. If you can replace just the unit, if you're trying to be holistic about your repair and not do the entire assembly, then you can just repair this guy. It's held in with 2 screws. If not, this can be disassembled. It's kind of a rough disassembly because it is sealed, and you want to try to reseal it as best as you can. You can see it's missing a screw, but you can try to pry it open and replace it with just these motors are usually a couple bucks depending on your shipping. So looking at the backhand side here, you also have this unit here that is kind of its own unit. This is nothing but a servo, meaning it's got 2 wires that go into it. These are common in remote control cars or remote control just about anything in robotics. It's basically a little one-way arm. It goes one way or the other. It's actuated by another little actuator motor. So this unit has 2 built in. And this is the same. It's not meant to be open, but it does have a couple screws holding it to the assembly and a couple to its own. And there's videos online on how to take it apart or take just one section apart. I think it's better to just take the entire thing apart. It's not that hard to reassemble. It's not going to completely spring open. It's pretty self-explanatory. The gears can only go in one position. And then this is actually the one that's meant to go right in here. But you can see they're almost identical. And I haven't taken the time to take this apart to see what the original might look like, and I'm guessing this may have been replaced as well. So that you can replace that motor, or if you can find a part number, you can replace this whole unit. There's no part number on this except the same branding decal, this Day-Key brand. Taking a further, and so what this does is when it is powered, it's an electrical power, and it basically activates this arm right here. There's a copper wire, and it can be screwed and regulated as it connects to this guy right here. And so that, when actuated, will go like this. That's about its whole range of motion as it comes down that far and releases. If you look at it on this side, you'll see some more moving parts. And the main one being this one right here. So this whole servo assembly connected to this rod system moves this bracket right here. It is moving both right now. This bracket right here is what is going to release the latch that holds your door locked into place against the car. I'm going to try to draw a very quick simple diagram. Most car doors, this is again looking at a left side, so it doesn't match this, but it matches it if you're looking at it from the outside. Most car doors, unless they're suicide doors, hinge on the front end of a vehicle, okay? And right here there's a latching system, and that will latch on to the frame of the vehicle. On a sliding door, that's identical it doesn't have a front hinge, but as the sliders on the bottom, or that guide rail right here, and I believe this one has one up on top as well, as the door comes into the closing position, you'll notice that the front end will dip inside the vehicle first and make a closing motion. So this is pivoted in and thus locking it in. But then there's another locking mechanism on the tail side that will actually lock it. And that does serves two different purposes. One is to lock the vehicle if you want the door locked and you don't want your vehicle opening up while in motion. But it also serves a purpose that when this cable is actuated, and it's actually fairly standard on any regular car door, when you pull that door lever, it's also mechanically pushing the door outwards. So it's not just releasing it, but it's actually pushing it outwards. And this is where a lot of these automatic doors on the Hyundais and Kia, Sedonas, Carnivals have this problem, is the motor that actually pushes the sliding door up and forward and back is actually located on the backhand side, on each corresponding side of the vehicle, near your fuel intake system. Inside, if you remove the inner panel, there is where you'll find the open and close motor and a couple components that control that. But what this is doing, that servo unit right here, pulling this leg and pulling this guy, is releasing that latch. So the motor, you'll hear it almost want to twitch and grind if this latch is not releasing. Or if there's slack in this unit here, it'll start to pull, but not enough. You might have the door partially push open, but not enough to get disengaged, and then the motor in the back of the vehicle to pull it out of the way. This lower cable right here, when your sliding door is in a fully open position, it will lock into place, so that if your vehicle is, say, facing downwards on a hill, like that, yep, the door won't close on its own, it actually latches. So the same servo system is used to both release that lock hatch. In this case, if the door is open, that's useless, it's just sitting out over by your fuel filling in the open air if your door is open. So usually you're in this problem scenario, your sliding door won't have any problems closing, it'll have problems opening. But this servo also serves for this lower latch, this brake-like system that houses itself in these two clamps. And this goes to the bottom of your car door right down here, and that's what locks the door in place when it's fully open, to make sure that the door doesn't close if you're parked on an incline when you open your door. So those are your two problem givers, and it's usually related to tightening this guy here, or making sure that the plastic gears aren't chewed up in this unit. And if you're living in the States and you go to a car dealer, they're likely gonna want to replace the entire assembly. Just to have a look at the rest, so you're kind of knowing what's happening, see what else there is to explain. I mentioned earlier, this cable goes to, it's a lot longer, and it goes to the exterior handle. So when this is actuated, you can see that set of motions of springs rotating, just similar to this one in this case. This also has two electric switches I was going to mention that come through this connector. So this connector powers the servo motor. It also comes up here to one switch, and it comes around, pigtails out of there, to another switch. And I figured out what they were, but I'm not remembering off the top of my head. So one switch sits right here, and it looks like it's a child lock. When the child lock is in position, the down facing the road versus facing upwards towards the sky, that's your child lock. it also controls the switch so that if the door is shut, a child won't be able to activate the electric motor to open the vehicle door or push the button to open up the vehicle door, though the vehicle button will work to close the door. So a little confusion there when understanding your child lock system, which most people drive these vehicles because of the family-friendly component. So those are some of the moving parts there. When the vehicle locks or unlocks, it's triggering this guy here. This is the manual lock. No, it's not triggering this. It's just triggering this manual lock. So that's something to test before you reassemble your entire door. This switch on the top controls, it sends a signal when that servo pulls the, get a good grip. So that's, you might be able to hear it. I don't know that you can see it. So when that servo pulls back, it tells probably either your lighting system in your dash that a door is open, or it might have to do as to when the electric motor for the door actuates. So a delay from the servo pops your door open, and then the motor retracts your door. So those are some of your functions there. I hope that will help you in your diagnosing of any troubles you might be having. I have some additional issues with some of these cables being spliced and replaced. I'll go ahead and answer one question. This servo motor on my opposite side, on my right side of the vehicle, was replaced with a non-matching part whatsoever. It was actually a servo with 5 different cables coming to it, so it probably had varying positions. But the 2 cables that were spliced in, and it was sort of jerry-rig mounted in with zip ties and new screw holes that didn't fit, but it did connect to this rod, so it can be done. And when actuated, it served the same purpose, which was pull it back. So if you're on a super low cost budget or just trying to get out of a very temporary bind, that is an option. But again, this is likely just going to be the plastic gears, and I believe from what I'm finding, these tend to chew up, or the black plastic of the housing tend to chew up prior to the actual gears chewing up. And a lot of the replacement parts are metal. So this video has gotten quite long, but I hope it has helped you answer some questions you may have. Thank you for watching.